The woman looks nervously into the distance as a group of zombies dressed as zombies walk towards the hilltop. These were none other than the Whisperers, the group known for wearing the skins of the dead. Leading them was a bald woman. The strange behavior of the group, combined with their makeup, gave them a sense of invisible oppression.
I'm Alpha. And we only want one thing from you. My daughter.
They all understood that the daughter Alpha had mentioned was none other than Lydia. Daryl has decided to keep Lydia since he learned that she's a victim of domestic violence. So Daryl directly told Alpha, "You'd better hurry up and leave. You won't be given the person."
Wrong answer.
With a wave of Alpha's hand, another group of the Whisperers came from the distance. Those on the wall were somewhat taken aback, realizing that the Whisperers' numbers were substantial. Their intentions were clearly threatening. Alpha remained silent, waiting for a response. After all they've been through, they don't want to get into trouble, but they're also not the kind of people who back down when things go wrong, especially Daryl. He wasn't going to send Lydia back into the fire again. Alpha spoke out again with authority.
Your people crossed into our lands. There will be no conflict. Your people killed our people. There will be no conflict. I'm done talking. Bring me my daughter, or there will be conflict.
No one touches a girl.
Daryl ordered the gate to be opened and stepped out alone. This woman was undeniably arrogant.
You can't have her. Now, if it's a fight you're looking for, we got enough firepower to light you up. Right here and now.
Alpha felt a hint of annoyance but managed to contain it for the moment. To Daryl's surprise, he saw a baby. He inquired, curious, "You're bringing a baby out here?" Alpha sneered, then explained, "We are animals. Animals live outside. What's wrong with bringing a child?" Then, her tone changed.
Now, what were you saying? Lighting us all up? You seem to want conflict. I don't. So I'm proposing a trade.
The masks were removed to reveal the missing Luke and Alden. Alpha talks soft in the toughest way possible.
I wanted to kill them, but I want my daughter more. One of mine, two of yours. It's a good trade, which is why you're gonna take it.
Now, there was no choice but to return Lydia to Alpha. They can't ignore that Luke and Alden are alive or dead. Yumiko and the others had initially planned to bring Lydia out, but upon reaching the cell, they found Lydia missing. The door was open and the key was on it. It didn't take much to deduce that Henry was responsible for this. Daryl quickly instructed everyone to split up and search. Luke and Alden's safety depended on it. 5 minutes later, they had scoured almost every corner of the hilltop, but Lydia was nowhere to be found. Daryl began to suspect that she had managed to escape. Then one of the kids came over and said that Henry might have gone to the cabin where they always went. Enid suggested that Daryl stay behind to manage things while she went to find Henry. Daryl agreed without saying much. Because Enid and Henry had a small generation gap, it would be more effective to persuade him. On the outside, one of Alpha's henchmen reported that zombies were approaching from behind. They wondered whether they should lead them away. Alpha shook her head, signaling her henchmen to ensure the safety of the hostages. For the time being, let the zombies stay behind. If there is a conflict, the zombies will be a help. Luke and Alden, who were tied up, also noticed the approaching zombies. As Luke turned his head to look, he surprisingly spotted Connie hiding in the cornfield. Although he was puzzled about how Connie ended up there, Luke avoided looking further to protect her location. Using sign language, Luke communicated that the zombies were coming and she should hide quickly. 2 minutes later, the zombies are approaching, but they're being led by the Whisperers to hover in the same place. But the child was so scared that he cried very loudly and the zombie was uncontrollably moving towards the child's place. Despite the mother's attempts to soothe the child, her efforts were in vain, and her anxiety was evident. The rules of the Whisperers were not to be taken lightly. Sure enough, Alpha was already watching her and gave her a wink. The woman had no choice but to remove the scarf from around her neck and lay the child on the ground. In this case, the child will be given to the zombies to eat. Alden was visibly angered by this sight. He couldn't believe these absurd rules. To abandon a child like this, people on the wall began banging on metal sheets, trying to attract the zombies with noise. However, the effect was minimal, and the zombies continued to move towards the child's location. Luke hurriedly communicated with Connie using sign language. He informed her that a baby was crying in the field in that direction. Upon receiving the message, Connie looked over in urgency. Sure enough, a horde of zombies was closing in on the crying baby. Connie, being a kind-hearted woman, didn't hesitate. She quickly took down a zombie with her slingshot and then ran towards the baby. As she picked up the baby, two of the whisperers approached with knives. Connie had no choice but to turn and run towards the cornfield. Being deaf and relying on visual cues, Connie sometimes only noticed zombies when they were right in front of her. Perhaps due to the baby's cries, more and more zombies were drawn towards them. Just when Connie was struggling to fend them off, Daryl arrived, along with Earl and his wife. They emerged from a side door as soon as they saw the situation. Outside, in the small house, Henry hides here with Lydia. Lydia, who had just changed into new clothes, looked refreshed, but soon there was a voice calling out for him. Henry looked over and walked out. It was Enid who had come looking for Henry. Henry knew why they were there, and he pleaded, "Please, just leave. Say we're not here, please." Lydia would be beaten again if she went back. Enid sighed and said, "If there's anything we can do to help her, we will. But if she doesn't go back, they'll kill Luke and Alden. No one wants that." Enid understood that Henry had an overflowing sense of justice. So, she told him that while many things in the world have right and wrong, sometimes we can't choose. We can only silently endure, especially in this lawless world. Henry was at a loss for words. In that moment, he realized that sticking to doing what was right wasn't so simple. Just when Henry was struggling, Lydia walked out. Lydia said, "It's okay, Henry, I'll leave. I want to leave this place too. I miss my mom." "Of course, I'll miss you too." Lydia said this to spare Henry. Before parting, she kissed the boy. 10 minutes later, Daryl walked out of the gate with Lydia. He actually wanted to keep the girl, having had an unfortunate childhood himself. He understood what kind of life Lydia would have if she went back, but sometimes there was no choice but to silently endure. Alpha looked at his daughter, who was clean and unharmed, and nodded without expression. Alpha kept her promise and released Luke and Alden. Daryl didn't waste time and let Lydia go directly. Lydia spent 2 days at the Hilltop. She fantasized that her mother might comfort and embrace her. However, her mother's subsequent actions brought her back to reality.
Sorry, Mama. Thanks for coming to get me. You call me Alpha. I call the rest. Yes, Alpha.
And so, the Whisperers departed. As if it were just a small episode in life, the two sides would never cross paths again. Life at the Hilltop returned to its calmness. In the evening, the reunited group of 5 sat together, drinking and chatting, their happiest moments. Only Connie sat lost in thought, her mind elsewhere. Enid and Alden were finally reunited. Earl and his wife held the baby they had saved today, cherishing it dearly, having lost their own son. This child seemed like a gift from above, giving them a reason to move forward. Henry lay on his bed, feeling down. He pondered why, in a world with clear right and wrong, it was sometimes impossible to do the right thing. Half an hour later, Daryl was also in a corner with no one around, perhaps reminiscing about his miserable childhood or thinking about Lydia. At this moment, a girl arrived. She had found a note in Henry's room. Daryl took it and read it, and Henry sneaked out. Naturally, Henry had gone to find Lydia. Daryl was getting ready to track them down. On one hand, he needed to ensure Henry's safety, a promise he had made to Carol. On the other hand, he wanted to rescue Lydia. After saying goodbye to Tara, Daryl headed towards the door. Seeing this, Connie seemed to realize something and hurriedly caught up. Connie hesitated for a moment, then realized that Daryl hadn't refused. Satisfied, she followed along. One couldn't help but be struck by Daryl's charisma. Isn't this love just coming along? You could say the two of them were quite a match. One silent and dependable, the other kind-hearted and courageous.